NPA Property Group national analysis continues to cast Melbourne as a key location for property acquisitions. For over 10 years, Melbourne has been the fastest growing capital city region in Australia. The population continues to rise and is expected to reach almost 8 million people by 2051, surpassing Sydney. Currently, 4.25 million people live in the Melbourne metropolitan area, compared with 4.76 million in Sydney. The southern and northern regions of Melbourne have been forecast to grow by the largest population, with an estimated 400,000 to 480,000 surge by 2031. These population figures, coupled with NPA Property Group's microanalysis, have uncovered locations with a high degree of capital growth potential and sustainable rental yields. Victoria recorded 71,407 interstate arrivals and 62,952 departures over the past year, resulting in a net gain of 8,455 residents. The 8,455 gain is a near record high, with arrivals sitting at their highest level since 2004 and departures having been relatively unchanged over recent years. Melbourne is rightfully considered the sporting capital of Australia, with a few of the great events being the Australian Open tennis, the famous Melbourne Cup horse race that stops the nation, and the home of the Australian Football League, culminating in the grand Australian tradition of the AFL Grand Final, just to name a few. The overall positivity within the residential market in Melbourne can be attributed to many macroeconomic drivers, including the low interest rates, increased foreign investment, particularly from China, and population growth. The strong population growth of net overseas and net interstate migration can be credited to the opportunities and lifestyle Melbourne presents. Melbourne is constantly ranked as one of the world's most livable cities and has been recently ranked on top of that list for the 5th year in a row. The survey takes into consideration culture, education, healthcare, environment and infrastructure. In order to sustain the projected growth, Melbourne must accommodate around 90,000 new residents every year, an increase of 15,000 to past averages. This growth will require around 1.6 million additional dwellings by 2051, and the state's annual construction capacity cannot match the construction requirements. Hence, there is a general consensus among experts that there is an undersupply of housing in Victoria. Next, we need to consider the price point in a Sydney versus Melbourne comparison. Sydney is the alpha market of Australia and has experienced a huge price growth of 39% over the last 3 years. The December 2015 quarter had a median dwelling price of $1,025,478, as experts predicted. For the same period, Melbourne had a lower median house price point of $718,000. Home buyers priced out of the Sydney market have started to realise that the overly high price point has diminished their potential rental returns and growth opportunities, therefore making certain areas of Melbourne a more attractive choice for them. Subsequently, we are starting to see a strong demand for property in Melbourne from interstate buyers who are chasing higher yields for a lower price point. It is also typical of Melbourne house prices to be dragged up by Sydney's prices, usually within a 2 to 3 year lag. Any property investment decision is driven by supply and demand, with a strong emphasis on population growth versus dwelling approvals. These equations represent exciting growth opportunities in strategic Melbourne locations as a result. To support the surging population, $27 billion has been committed to new infrastructure projects throughout Greater Melbourne to cater for the 1.57 million new dwellings required to cater for the increased demand. The emergence of new suburbs will cater for the required 610,000 new dwellings in growth locations. Employment opportunities will be catered for, with an expected 300,000 new jobs to be created in the central city. Other developments include new roads, Monash Freeway widening project to provide streamlined traffic systems from Geelong to Pakenham to be completed in 2018. The Monash Highway will be turned into a 10-lane superhighway by adding an extra lane in each direction, allowing an extra 2,000 cars on the road. It will cut 10 minutes from the commute time. New rail lines, including approved Metro Underground system, will commence in 2018, and a new proposed airport for the South East will also create a large economic stimulus for the region. For the past 2 years, Melbourne has added 61,700 jobs on a net basis. As Melbourne grows to be a city of around 7.7 million people by 2051, it is expected to add more than 1.7 million new jobs. Melbourne's central sub-region is set to become Australia's largest employment centre. Due to its physical setting, Sydney's central region is constrained. On the other hand, Melbourne's central region is expected to see continued economic, employment and population growth in the medium to long term. Investment by successive Victorian governments, including at Southbank and Docklands, has unlocked strategically located and relatively affordable waterfront land. This has provided private sector investment opportunities, strengthened the productivity benefits that come from the greater knowledge sector density, and enabled Melbourne to compete for global capital.